So today we are going to be solving the JAM Economics paper of 2025, and this paper and this video is going to be special for me personally because I had cleared the JAM of 2025 and I had gotten a top 100 rank. So moving on, here again, as I just said that I have cleared the JAM gate and the CUET PG exam. I had gotten into top universities like IIT Kanpur, JNU, IGIDR and more. So now before we begin with the paper itself, I have got a very special announcement that we have launched a new bundle on the Examlify website, which is the All India Jam Access series for 2026. Okay, it is going to be including three tests, which are going to be all India tests where you are going to get an all India rank, you are going to get a detailed test report, and I have personally curated these tests on the basis of a very long and tedious analysis of past papers, of trends, and of all the sources from where the repeated questions are being asked every year. Okay, so I can take personal guarantee for that the tests are going to be on the exact patterns of the JAM economics exam. Okay, apart from that, you are also going to be getting some notes for guidance and some notes on the actual subject matter, like there is a consumer theory that has already been uploaded and more will be coming soon. Okay, besides that, each of the tests is going to have a detailed video solution where I have explained all the core concepts that are underlying the respective questions that have been asked in the paper. Okay, and all of this is going to be available to you for absolutely free. All you have to do is go to the Examlify website right now and you have to register yourself and you have to buy the All India Jam Access series for 2026. It is priced at 1 rupee right now. It is a limited time offer. Okay, so be sure to get that. And obviously the first test is dated at the 2nd of November of 2025, and the rest of the tests and their schedule is going to be visible to you right now. So now let us begin. One thing that I want to say, that if you have not attempted the 2025 JAM paper yet, if you have never attempted it before, my advice to you would be to attempt it once. And how are you going to attempt it? Again, as I said, that in the All India Jam Access series, we have also included the 2025 test paper. When you are successfully registered inside of the course and you go to the test portal, you are also going to see the 2025 Jam paper. All you have to do is go and take that test. You will get a detailed report, you will get your marks, you will get your rank. Okay, you will see where you stand right now. And obviously, uh, in the previous videos I have told what marks were needed to clear that exam. So if you think that you are good enough, then very well. If not, then don't worry, keep working and join us at Examlify so that we can improve your scores. Okay, so as I said, all of this is available for free. All you have to do is register on the website. So let us begin. Okay, so let us begin with the first question, which is, for a positively skewed frequency distribution, which one is bigger than what? This is a very easy question where, like, I think that this is a very commonly taught concept that you can find wherever you are studying, or even in the books. This is like very commonly mentioned. So let me ask you this first: which one is this? Is this positively skewed or is this negatively skewed? You should answer this, right? Is this positive or negative? This is positive. No, it is not. Okay, so these are the parts where we often get the most confused, but these are also parts where we do not focus on. These are parts that we think are not going to be important, and that is where the IITs are going to strike you, because they know what the student is thinking. Okay, they are way smarter than you. So we have this, then we have this, and we have this. Okay, So one of this is positive, negative. So I'm sorry guys, I actually had to reshoot this part because of a technical error. So now let us look at what the question is asking of us. It is asking about a positively skewed frequency distribution, and as you can see we have drawn the three graphs. The first one is the negatively skewed, then the positively skewed, and finally the symmetrical distribution. Okay, so let us break down each of them and understand why the mean, median and mode are at the places as they are. Okay, so obviously we are looking at a positively skewed frequency distribution, right? So in this one you are going to see that the shape of it is like this. Okay, so now let us look at the positions of the mean, median and mode and why they are there. Okay, so obviously for the mode you can see that the highest frequency is with the mode, and that is obviously the definition of the mode, that whatever data value has the highest frequency in the entire distribution, that is what the mode is. And I want to point out a very funny mistake that a student had made last year in the actual exam. So what he had done is that he remembered the graph completely right. Okay, so he had actually gone to the exam and he had drawn the exactly right graph for the positively skewed frequency distribution. What mistake did he make? What he did was that he actually uh, drew the graph and then he wrote mode, median and mean. Okay, just like this graph, and then he still chose the answer of mode is greater than median is greater than mean. Can you tell me how this happened? So what he did was that he looked at the values on the y-axis, and if you see here, then obviously the frequency of the mode is the highest, then comes the median and then comes the mean, right? So that is what you have to keep in mind. What is the graph actually talking about? What is on the y-axis, what is on the x-axis, right? On the x-axis we have the data values. For example, when you see a very simple question like height of 50 boys. Okay, so let's say that the height of 5 and 7 inches, this belongs to 10 boys. So 10 boys here is the frequency, while 5 7 is the data value. Okay, so that is the difference. Okay, so this can also be applied to salaries, to wages. Okay, so to any similar such thing. Okay, so obviously here you can see that mode is going to be the highest frequency, then median, then mean. And which of the following, is the most impacted by highest data values? Let us say that we have numbers in the distribution, or the distribution looks like this. Okay, is the mode going to be affected by this? Let us add one more one here. What is the mode here? It is going to be 1, right? The frequency of 1 is 2. What is going to be the median here? It is going to be the middle value. Okay, what is, whatever is the middle value. Okay, and what about mean here? The mean is the average of the sum total. Okay, so if there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 values, we sum all of these up and we divide it by 6. So it is the most impacted by extreme values. So that is why if we say that in a positively skewed frequency distribution, if there are higher data values, it is going to affect mean the most in terms of data. So mean is going to go to the right. So in such a case, mean is every time it is going to be to the extreme right, then comes the median, then comes the mode. And keep in mind, when we are answering it, we are answering it on the x-axis. The mode, median and mean are on the x-axis, not on the y-axis. If we say that what is the mode of this, it is 1. It is not 2. Okay, because 2 is just the frequency of 1. That is a very common confusion, that is a very common error, that is why I had to point it out. So obviously, as we have already seen, it is a positively skewed distribution, so the answer is going to be A. So similarly, in the negatively skewed one, you can see mean is the lowest, then median, then mode, for the exact same reason, right? So if you say that there are values like 10,000, then we have 20k and so on, this is a distribution, then we have a value like 1. Again, the mean is going to be impacted the most. And obviously in the Symmetrical distribution, mean is equal to median is equal to the mode, right? So that is easy. That I'm going to tell you what goes through my mind when I'm trying to solve a question like this, right? So first of all, you look at the keywords, which is most important is 1991. Then you look at that it had to examine the structure, organization, functions of the Indian financial system. So it has to be a very prominent committee, given that it is examining the structure, organization, and functions of the Indian financial system, that too in 91 near the LPG reforms. So it definitely has to be a committee that I would have heard of. Okay, so that is the first thought. So now let us look at the options. Just by looking at this once, I would say that you should know that it is the Narsimha committee. Okay, so I mean, this is one of the most prominent committees. You should know the time when it was set up and what it was set up for, because these are one of the most important committees. But still, let us take a look at the options. So when you start from the top, you see the Rangarajan committee. A lot of students get confused at this step only, because the Rangarajan committee is one of the most important committees in all of economics. If you are giving any exam where economics is going to be involved, like UPSC, may it be IES, may it be whatever it is, okay, JAM, GATE, CUD, PG, wherever you go, the Rangarajan committee is going to be very important for you and very confusing. Why? Because the the Rangarajan committee has been set up in India for various projects throughout different decades. Okay, so let us go through a really quick list, which says that in 1989 or nearly in 1990, a Rangarajan committee was set up, and also these are all the same Rangarajans. Okay, it is not a different Rangarajan. So in 1990 almost, there was a Rangarajan committee on the modernization of the banking sector. So you can write that computerization in banking, right? Then there was another one in 91, one of the most famous ones, which was for balance of payments, okay, during the for the external sector reforms, okay. Then another one in 1997, this one was for the public sector public sector disinvestment. Okay, this one was for disinvestment, right? So then there was another one in 2000 for macroeconomic savings trends, for savings trends of households. Okay, then finally the most famous one was in 2012, which was for the poverty estimation reforms, right? Then there was another one in 2014, which was for financial inclusion. Okay, so as you can see that there have been so many Rangarajan committees that this man and the committees that have been formed with him as the head are going to be very important for you. And then obviously the Narsimha committee and any committee that was established during or around the LPG reforms are going to be very important. And obviously we have covered all the committees in detail in the Indian economy notes, so you can also go through them once you join us at Examplify. Now let us move on to the third question. Now, yeah, these questions are so easy that I mean, if you are getting them wrong, I mean, I don't know what to say, because these are absolutely free marks. These are the questions that nobody is going to get wrong. Okay, so if you want to compete with the top 100, with the top 50, whatever it is, if you want to compete for an IIT, you cannot get these wrong. Okay, because this is common knowledge. if you are going to appear for a competitive exam like jam, like gate, like cvtpg, and you want to be in the top 100, you cannot get these wrong. So obviously there was a inflation targeting policy that was adopted by RBI in 2015, and what it had established with the framework was that the inflation has to be targeted at 4% with a plus minus of 2. Okay, so this gives us that it is 2 to 6%. So making our answer A. Very easy. I mean, I don't know if I can personally add anything to this, because this is just something that you have to remember, that you have to study. And we have obviously provided all of this in our notes for someone who is a beginner. Okay. So now let's move on to the fourth one, which says that which one of the following is distinct from others, or find the odd one out. So we have a histogram. Obviously, yes, some of these you have to know. Otherwise, you can't even use the elimination method, right? Because there are going to be some questions that you have to solve with tricks. Okay, you can't just solve them directly. But obviously, many of you could solve this directly as well. So it is not that hard. I'm just saying that it is a question that can definitely cause a level of confusion. So obviously histogram, you know what it is. You have seen it in school, you have seen it everywhere. So this is going to be a histogram. Then what do you have? You have a frequency polygon. Okay. So you just take the frequencies, the middle point of the histogram, and you draw a graph, and you take it from this point, right? So you have a frequency polygon. Okay. Then you have an ogive. Now this is the one that is going to cause you a lot of confusion if you do not know what a pictogram is. Okay, even if you know what a pictogram is, ogive can cause you confusion. And the logical reason behind that is that even if you know what a pictogram is, you can say that you can directly see the word frequency polygon. Even if you do not know what a frequency polygon is, you know that there is something that is related to frequencies in these options. Okay, so based on that, you know that a pictogram can be drawn where frequencies are being displayed by pictures. Okay, so frequency can be a part of a pictogram, right? And it usually is. So if ogive is something that is not at all related to frequencies, then you can say that ogive can be the answer. But that is not the case, because ogive is just a line graph that is going to be displaying different levels of frequencies. Okay, so it can be this, it can be this, it can be whatever, based on the level of the frequencies. Then finally pictogram is a graph where, like, if it is a boy, then the frequencies is going to be displayed by that picture or whatever, and that is the reason why it is the odd one out, because it is not a graph in the usual sense. Okay, so that is why the answer here is going to be a pictogram. Okay. Okay, so if I can just complete this. So as you can see that this is the frequency polygon and the histogram in one graph, and frequency polygon and histogram, and here you have the ogive, which is a line graph for cumulative frequencies. Okay, that is an ogive. So obviously pictogram you know. So let us move on to the next question. Okay, so a very easy yet very important question is the fifth question, which says that which of the following is the shutdown condition for prof. Okay, so first of all, again, as I said, you look at the keywords. What are the keywords here? Shutdown condition is being asked for a profit maximizing firm in perfectly competitive market. Okay, you know what the price ABC and this is. Now, one important thing is that they have not mentioned if this is the short run or the long run. They have just said that it is a perfectly competitive market. Okay, so I mean, I shouldn't be even explaining this, because this is something that even if you do not understand, you have to memorize this. The shutdown points, the properties of different markets. These are some features that you if you are not doing this thoroughly and going to sit in the exam, I don't know what to tell you, okay, and why you are even there. So obviously I'm not going to draw the graph here. I'm just going to ask you, uh, let us assume that we are in the short run right now, okay, we are not given anything. Tell me something that when the price is less than the average total cost, can the firm still continue? In some case, is there a case where the firm can still continue its operations if the price is less than the average total cost? Yes, when, until the point that the firm is covering its variable cost, like the daily wages or whatever it has to pay its laborers. Till that point, it can still continue in the short run. It is still possible. But is it possible to still continue in the short run or in any run if the price is less than the average variable cost? You cannot even pay your laborers who are standing outside of your door. How will you be able to still operate? How easy is this? Okay, so this is your answer. Okay, so now let us move on to the sixth question, which says that which of the following is correct in context of a natural monopoly. So again, a very straightforward and theoretical question, and you just need to know the basics of a natural monopoly and you will be able to answer this. So before we take a look at the options, let us take a look at what the natural monopoly is. First, we are going to talk logically, then we are going to look at the graph. Okay. So let us just talk about the intuition that is behind a natural monopoly. Okay. So by definition, natural monopoly is basically a situation where the nature of the market or the nature of the industry is such that one producer or one firm being in the market is more profitable and more efficient than more number of firms being in the industry. So what we are trying to say is that one firm being in the market is actually natural, and this monopoly is there because of the nature of the industry. Okay, so that is the intuition behind it, that naturally one firm being present in the market is more efficient than a higher number of firms. Now let us look at the graph and then we will talk about an example of it. Okay, so the AR and MR curve is going to be the usual case, a downward sloping. This is the AR or demand curve for the price. This is the MR. Okay. Now, before we take a look at the AC curve, look at the MC curve. It is a straight line, so a straight horizontal line. Okay. And now, finally, let us look at the AC curve. So this is the graph of a natural monopoly. Let us really quickly talk about it. So when we talk about the AC curve, you see that it starts at a very high point. Okay, and then it comes down, it goes down even below AR, and you can see that it is tending towards the MC curve. When it is tending towards the MC curve, when the quantity is increasing. As the quantity increases, the AC curve tends, the AC curve tends towards the MC curve. Now let us talk about what this means. We know that the natural monopoly is a case like, for example, the railways. The initial fixed cost or the initial startup cost, which is also the fixed cost, is going to be very high. Okay, railways, the Indian railways is a very good example of a natural monopoly, because when you look at it, that the initial startup cost of like starting a railway company is going to be very high, right? It is going to be very high. But when you talk about the MC, the marginal cost, the variable cost, in fact, it is going to be very low relative to the number of consumers that it can cater. Okay, so now let us take an example of one train. Okay, in one train, let's say that the obviously the startup or the initial cost of that train was very high, right? Now let us say that there are 5,000 people that are already sitting on the train. Okay, what do you think will be the variable cost or the additional cost of catering to one additional person? The 5,001st person, 5,001 people are now on the train, and the last person is now coming on the train. What it will be the cost of catering to that additional person? It is going to be very low, right? You don't have to buy an additional train bogie just for that one person. He will just be offered one seat that is going to be on the train that was anyways empty. Okay, so the marginal cost is very low. It is very low. It is fixed at a level that is very low. Okay, and the fixed cost was very high, which is why the average total cost in the beginning was very high, because AC is equal to AFC plus AVC, and AVC is very low because we know that the variable cost is absolutely nothing, it is very low. So as the quantity increases, we know that obviously AFC also goes down, right? Because now there is no more fixed cost that are going to be attached to this. So we are going to see that the AC is going to go down as the quantity increases. Okay, and because of this you will see that eventually the AC will come very close to the MC, but they will never touch obviously, but they will come very very close. Okay, so this is going to be the graph of the national monopoly. Now let us look at the options that were there in this question. So the first one says that monopoly arises because one key input is a precious natural resource. Okay, so even though this is not false, right? Technically this is correct, but we are talking about a natural monopoly. This is called a resource monopoly. Okay, this is also a different kind of monopoly. For example, if you talk about China, you will see very often in the news that there are some rare earth elements that are being mined by China and only China right now. Okay, so China has a monopoly in that resource, but that is not a natural monopoly, right? That is not because of the nature of the industry, that is because of a geographical location. So that is called a resource monopoly. Then let us first look at the third option. Government does not allow other producers to produce the product. That is also not a natural monopoly. The government is forcing that upon the firms. So that is called a legal monopoly. Okay, so by law the government is doing this. Then the fourth option, Indian Railways is an example of such a monopoly. Now even though this is correct, even though many students did mark this, this is still technically the not the best option, right? When you are taking an MCQ test where you have a test where there are options, you have to choose the most fitting, the most appropriate option, and you see that there is an option that is straight up defining what a natural monopoly is, right? This is just straight up definition of a national monopoly. So there can be some subjectivity that comes in when we talk about Indian Railways being the example of such a monopoly, because you will see that there are now private players that are coming and that are more interested in the railways industry, and maybe one day the private players may enter the industry and it may be privatized, right? The monopoly of the government might get broken. So that comes down to subjectivity, even though technically the statement is right as of now. So that is why the most appropriate option is this, that the total fixed cost is substantially larger than the total variable cost. This is the defining characteristic, the defining feature of a national monopoly, that because of the very very high average cost, or the very very high fixed cost in the beginning, the average cost, the average total cost is going to be high. Okay, that is why not everyone can enter this industry. Okay, so you can say that you are a very small firm and you want to enter the railways of India, right? You will be kicked out. So that is the point of it, that that even if more players do enter, even if a player does try to enter, what is going to happen is that the cost is still going to be this high, right? But the AC is not going to decrease as fast as it did. The AC will look something like this. It will be much higher. You know why? because the quantity is now not increasing as fast as it was during the single firm. When there are two firms, the quantity of the consumers has been divided into the two, but the average cost is still very high. So the average cost will not decrease as fast as it was in the single firm case or in the national monopoly case. Okay, so the revenue is going to be divided between two, and that is why the average cost is going to come down very slowly relative to the national monopoly. Okay, so that is why one firm being one firm in such a market is more efficient, and such a market is defined as, or such a situation is defined as, a natural monopoly. Okay, so remember the graph, remember the defining characteristics. It is a very important topic as it is directly mentioned in the syllabus. Okay, so now let us move on to the seventh question, which says that if a Japanese citizen owns an apartment in India, then the rental income that she earns from the apartment is part of what? I mean, I don't know if I even have to explain this. This is like, these are very easy questions that were put by IIT Delhi in the 2025 paper. So this paper was so easy that the cutoff that was in 2024, which was about 24 marks, it had increased to almost the double in 2025, because this was the reason behind it, right? Look at the level of the questions. Nobody got these wrong, right? If you are well prepared, you cannot get this. So I mean, what do I even have to explain? So when she is in India, right, we know that she is in the territory of India. This means that her income will be a part of the domestic income of India, right? Because what is GDP? GDP is the income that is a part of the domestic territory of a country. Okay, so we are not talking about if it is a foreigner, if it is what wherever the people have come from, if they are within the geographical limits of a country and they are doing any kinds of production, or they are earning any kind of income within that country, it is a part of the domestic income of that country. So for GNP, you obviously know that when we talk about national income, we deduct something called the net factor income from abroad, which means that the factor income that was earned inside of India that is going abroad is deducted, and the factor income that is coming from abroad is added. So that gives us NFIA. So obviously, when the Japanese citizen, because she is not a citizen of India, right? If she was just a Japanese resident or whatever, if she was a Japanese person who had now converted into an Indian citizen, then that would have been a different story. We know that it is a Japanese citizen. It is clearly mentioned. So that is why we say that we assume that that factor income will be eventually going back to Japan. So that is why the answer is this, that it will be part of the GDP but not GNP, because it will be subtracted. So very easy question again. The consumer price index differs from the GDP deflator since it includes goods and services rather than goods and services dash. Okay. As we have seen already in the weightage, if you have not checked out the weightage video, do it right now. It is very important for you because you will not know where to allot your time. You will waste all of your time if you do not understand the weightage, the subject wise weightages. Go and watch that right now. So there we talked about that in the 2025 paper, the maths part was only asked for 4 marks, right? And there was a reason behind it. This paper is mostly theoretical. The pattern that we have seen until now is the pattern for the entire paper. The topics are very important, they are mentioned directly in the syllabus, but the questions are, even though they are very basic, they still can cause confusion. Okay, so now let us look at it. uh, Obviously you know what is CPI, what is GDP deflator. CPI just notices the changes in a basket of goods and services, right? So one key thing is that obviously, as you can see in the name, consumer price index, we are talking about the goods and services that are being consumed in India. We are not talking about where these goods were produced. They can be imported, they can come from China, they can come from Mars, I don't care. What we are talking about is that we have a basket of goods and services. We are just noticing the price changes. Okay, so if you say that the consumer price index is going to include goods and services that were exported, how can matlab, that is so stupid, right? So this, that is what makes these very easy, that you can just eliminate one wrong keyword that you notice very easily. Boom, boom. You don't have to care about these two options. Now we have to focus on the GDP deflator. We know this part is done. Produced or imported. GDP deflator is going to focus on goods that are produced or imported. GDP. What is GDP? In the GDP itself, as we just saw before this question, that it focuses on the goods that are produced within the domestic territory of a country, right? So, the gross domestic product, as is in the name, we say that we are talking about the goods that are produced. Okay, so very, very easy question again. So, then we see that the Garibi Hata. So, the 5 year plans, the 5 year plans is a very, very important topic. You have to do the 5 year plans no matter what, each and every one of them from the first to the last one. So I have obviously included them in the Indian economy notes in detail. I have made a table for all the 5 year plans and all the important keywords and all the important things that were mentioned in those 5 year plans. So obviously Garibi Hatao, I mean, you don't even have to look at anything else. So let us just read it anyway. Garibi Hatao and growth with justice were the slogans of which 5 year plan? So I mean, just by looking at Garibi Hatao, first two words, you should know that it was the fourth 5 year plan. There is nothing else to talk about in this. All I'm going to say is that go to Examplify, join us, and you can see the table that I have made in very much detail of every 5 year plan. It's going to be very helpful for you. Which is not a function of the Reserve Bank of India, lending to the businesses, bank of issues, banker of the government, controller of credit. I even have to say, right? So that is what I've been talking about, that this paper was so easy. The cutoff didn't just double on its own, right? The quality of the students will not increase that much every year, right? Within the gap of 1 year, if the cutoff is going to double, the paper is obviously going to be very, very easy. So there is nothing to talk about in this, right? So now let us do the 11th. Again, a very, very easy question. If you are doing statistics, this is something that you just know, right? You just have to know this. So let us just really quickly look at the graph first. Okay, so let us say that these are our values. So the area beyond this, the blue area, is the area of rejection. Rejecting what? Rejecting our null hypothesis. Okay, so this is basically the graph of it. When a value is lying beyond this red area, right, that is when we are going to be rejecting the null hypothesis, and if it is within it, then we are going to say that we have accepted the null. Now the question is asking, in the statistical hypothesis testing, the area of non-rejection is defined as, and we have these options. Before this, let's just really quickly look at a table. Okay, so all right, so we are going to write here that we reject the null, and here we are saying that we accept it, or we do not reject the null. Okay, here we are saying that HO is true. Here we will say HO is false. So in the first box, in the first category, we see that we have rejected a true null. What do we, what value do we assign to the case when we reject a true null? We say that it is alpha, or it is a type 1 error. What is a type 1 error? A type 1 error is when you have rejected a null when it was true, when it should not have been rejected. That is when you rejected it. Okay. Okay. So now let us move on to the case when we have accepted the null hypothesis when it was indeed false. That is called beta. It is the type 2 error, that we have accepted the null hypothesis when it was wrong. Okay. So then we move on to the case when HO is true and we have successfully accepted it. It is nothing but 1 minus alpha. And when we say that the null was false and we have successfully rejected it, that is 1 minus beta. And this is also known as power of test. Okay. So now let us come back to our question, and we are looking for the area of non-rejection. The area of non-rejection. Okay, so one thing that I want to say is that this question can also be answered directly logically. I was just trying to teach you. So now let us take a look at the options. The first option says that 1 minus probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when it is true. So we know that the total value of this entire, the whole thing is going to be 1, right? And what this is saying that is that probability of rejecting the null when it is true. What was that? We have just seen it. It is true and has been rejected. So this is 1 minus alpha. Okay. So when we say that we have rejected the null when it was true. Okay. So we are talking about the rejection region, right? And we know that the null is true. And 1 minus this area is going to be nothing but this area. The area that we want. Okay, which is the area of non-rejection, the area of acceptance. So this is going to be the area of acceptance. So obviously the first option itself is going to be correct. Okay. Okay, so now let us move on to the next one. It says that if beta hat is a consistent estimate, again look at the keywords, it is a consistent estimator of a population parameter beta, then epsilon and delta are very small quantities, then which of the following is true? So at first look, this question might appear scary to you if you do not understand what is going on here. But trust me, this is a very, very, very easy question. Just look at it. The best thing is that you can just solve this with pure logic. If you just go on and read each one of the equations, you can see that you can just solve this logically. Okay. So I would like you, if you pause the video and try it first on your own. So let us look at it. The definition of a consistent estimator. What is it? It is that if the n is very large, okay, then the probability that beta hat minus beta less than epsilon, okay, so basically that the difference between these is going to be even lesser than a very small value. The probability of this is going to be 1. This is the definition of a consistent estimator. Okay, if it is a consistent estimator, then this is how you are going to define the relationship between the two. So given what we have here is that we know that both epsilon and delta are very, very small values, right? So now let us take a look at the options. The first one, that when n tends to infinity. Also the thing is that as n keeps on increasing, the value of epsilon is going to keep falling. So as n tends to infinity, epsilon is going to be infinitely small. Okay, it is a value, it is a very small error term. Okay, so now let us look at the first option. It says that, okay, this is the one that is right. So it says that when n tends to infinity, beta hat minus beta less being less than epsilon, the probability of this is going to be more than or equal to 1 minus epsilon, sorry, 1 minus delta, and delta just like epsilon is a very, very small value, so you can just say that we are talking about 1. Why are the rest of the options incorrect? Let us take a look at that as well. Probability of n tends to infinity beta hat minus beta being less than epsilon is 0. Then what is the point of beta hat being a consistent estimator, right? Then similarly, it cannot be delta. Delta is very close to 0. So this is also wrong. This is also wrong. What about this one? Just remove this. Remove this. Probability of anything being more than 1, right? So some things are self-explanatory, so I don't have to say anything here. Again, a very, very, very easy question on the exact same thing that I have just showed you, the table that I had drawn just a moment ago. This is what they are trying to find. 1 minus probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when it is true. Is that what it is? No, we know that the beta is nothing but accepting a false null hypothesis. So 1 minus probability of not rejecting or accepting the null hypothesis when it is not true or it is false. This is absolutely correct. 1 minus beta is what they are looking for. Okay, moving on. Now this question, I know that this question is not easy. Okay, first of all, let me just put that out there. Secondly, this exact question, word by word, I'm going to put that here somewhere. This exact question was asked in GATE of 2024. That is why I have been emphasizing the value of PYQs again and again. If you had just put in the extra effort of trying to solve the GATE 2024 paper, or even just watching the solutions video, okay, you would get 2 free marks in this question, and these 2 marks are much more valuable than other marks. Do you know why? Because most of the students either skipped this or they got it wrong. Very few got it right. Okay, so that is what makes these questions more valuable. The questions that others are getting wrong, that is where you want the edge. That is how you are going to come in the top 100. And how? They just solve the PYQs or they just watch the solution videos. Okay, so now let us look at what the question is saying. It is saying that we have a y, which is a Cobb-Douglas function with two factors, labor capital, then presence of constant returns of scale exhibited by production function can be tested by. Okay, so we know that for CRS the condition is alpha plus beta is equal to 1. So this is going to be our null hypothesis. Okay, right? And alpha plus beta not equal to 1 is going to be our alternate hypothesis, right? So the question is asking us if we can test this hypothesis with only the t test, the f test, both the t and f statistics, or the chi-square test. Okay, so for this all you need is the definitions of each of them, or just an idea of what these are. If you know what the t test is for, what the f test is for, what the purpose of these tests is, you can answer this. So you know that the t test is used for individual values, right? For for testing individual values in samples. So you can say that you can test alpha is equal to 0.3, and then you can test that if beta is equal to 0.7. If that is true, then the sum is 1. So then you can say that it is CRS. So yes, you can use the t test. Then the f test is used for a joint test. So basically you can tell if alpha plus beta is equal to 1, whatever the values may be, you can tell if this is true or not using the f test, and if it is true then it is going to be CRS. So obviously both the t and tests are right, and they have framed the options in such a way that they want to help you. They want you to actually answer this, because if they did not want you to answer this, instead of a chi-square here, do you know what they would write here? They would just write, or basically in place of this one, they would just write all of the above. Okay, so now you would get confused if chi-square is actually a part of this or not. So the chi-square test is actually not going to be a part of this, because the purpose of it is different. It is used for the goodness of fit test. You have seen this in more complex regression analysis parts, and then it is used in larger samples. Okay, so the purpose of it is slightly different. It is not going to be used in these individual values or very small samples. So the answer is going to be both the T and the F statistic. Okay. Okay, moving on. In the context where sample mean of the dependent variable y lies closer to the observed yi than its least square predictor. We will look at the options later. First, let us look at what R square is. Right? So R square is basically a relation between SSR and SST. What is this? This is nothing but the residual sum of squares. So the sum of squared regression divided by the total sum of squares. The total sum of squares. Okay. And what does this mean? The This is nothing but the total variation of y around its mean, or y bar. Right? So now let us look at the question. The question is saying that the sample mean of this variable is closer to the observed yi than its least square predictor. So this means that the original mean that we already had, that has done a better job of prediction than our least square predictor. So our regression model has not worked. Okay, it has basically failed because the prediction that it has given us is actually worse off than the original mean of the sample. Okay, so the mean is closer to the observation than the least square predictor is. Okay, so what do we call that? We say that, let us write one for each of them. So when we say that the goodness of fit is equal to 1, when R square is equal to 1, which means that SSR is equal to SST, right? Which means that it is a perfect prediction. Our least square predictor, our regression model has made a perfect prediction. So this means that R square is 1, or it just means that the prediction is perfect. It is a perfect prediction. Okay, now when we say that the goodness of fit, or R square, is equal to 0, this means that the regression model has not added anything. Okay, so the regression is equal to the mean. There has been no improvement. Okay, so no improvement, and regression is equal to mean, so you can just say no improvement from mean, which is y bar. Then when you say that R square is between 0 and 1, there is some improvement from the mean. The prediction has improved, and it has basically become closer to the observation. So you can say that there is some improvement from the mean. Then when you say that the R square is negative, it means that your regression model has actually made it worse off than it was originally relative to the mean. Okay, so here you can say that the mean is closer to the observation yi. And is that not what our question also says? That is why R square is going to be negative. So basically they have tested your entire knowledge about and around the goodness of fit test. Do you actually understand what it means. It is a very basic question, but if you do not do this part, if you do not understand the regression part in depth, you won't be able to answer it. Okay, so which one of the following is correct? Higher the cash reserve ratio, smaller the money multiplier. What is there that is not being understood in this? Multiplier is just equal to 1 upon CRR. This is the simplified version when you do not have any other values. This is being taught in class 12th. Okay, so there is nothing that is too difficult. If you even look at the other options, higher the cash reserve ratio, larger the money multiplier. If banks hold all the deposits as reserve, larger the cash reserve ratio does not. So I don't have to say anything. Public sector undertakings can affect the government exchequer through tax payments only, डिविडेंड पेमेंट्स ओनली, इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स ओनली. वाई? क्यों? किस वजह से? डिविडेंड, इंटरेस्ट एंड टैक्स पेमेंट्स will not each and every one of these affect the government exchequer? Like, it is such a simple and straightforward question. They are not even asking if it will increase or decrease, or if this happens or that. Will it be affected? Will the government exchequer, will the government reserves, will the government, what the funds that the government have, will it be affected by if the a public sector undertaking gets a dividend, when it earns a profit, when it gets interest on the loans that they have given or on the loans that they have taken, when it pays tax? Is the government exchequer not being affected? What is there to even think about? Okay, so according to the ISLM model, if the central bank increases the money supply, then the rate of interest will and the income will. Very easy, direct question, nothing to say, nothing to do. Make the graph, draw the curves, then this is the LMIS. What part of this do you not understand? First, we have a graph. We have the LMIS curves. Then we can see that here is income. Here on the y-axis is the interest rate. You can see that when the money supply will increase, the interest rate is going to fall down. Okay, so when the interest rate falls down, we know that there is an inverse relationship between the interest rate and the investment that is being made. So with a fall in the interest rate, the investment is going to increase, because of which the income is also going to increase, because the investment is a part of the income. So because of the new interest rate, the new income is going to be higher. So we have the interest rate will fall and the income will rise. Very easy and straight question, nothing to think about or nothing to overthink about. Then another very easy question. Rosie buys a 50-year-old house for her family this year. This year, Kathy builds a new house for herself. Total investment in this economy. What do you think should be the answer? Should it be 1 plus 1/50th of the other house? Or should it be one and half of the other house? I mean, I don't even know what these options are, what the thought process has to be to actually arrive to one of these answers. So basically, you know that this is a sale of a second hand asset. This is just a transfer of ownership. This is not a new investment in the economy itself. So sure, there will be brokerage and stuff like that that is going to be included in the GDP, but the house itself is not going to be included, which is why the answer is one house. All right, guys, moving on. So let us look at this question. Consider a firm that produces a single good using labor and capital. Then price of so an example of the cost function for this firm would be. So the question is saying which one of the following is a valid cost function. Okay, so you just have to find a valid cost function. So if you just look at the options, the first option is just WL plus RK, which is nothing but what the normal cost sequence is. This is not a minimized cost function. Okay, so what we are looking at is that we know that there is some quantity. Okay, so this is let's say this was the q. Okay, this was the q function. So we know that for some function the minimized cost function is one of the following. Which of the following is a valid minimized cost function? So this is not one. We know that this is just the normal equation that we write before minimizing the cost. Okay, so then C is equal to min of WL or RK. This does not make sense because this would just be the minimum of this or this. So that would not be the minimized cost function because a minimized cost function would be only in the terms of R and W. Okay. So just by that logic, you should know that L or K, labor and capital, should not be there in the minimized cost function. Okay, so just by using that logic, we can eliminate this, and when we look at this, it says C is equal to PQ by WL plus RK. So obviously you see L and K and L here, but it also says price. It is saying that the cost of making the product is dependent on the price of selling the product, the price at which you are selling the product. How can the like, is there any logic in this? The price, how can the cost be dependent on the selling price, right? So then you see finally that C is equal to Q root RW. So here you see that the cost function is rightly a function of Q, R and W. So this is a valid cost function. So the option D is correct. Alright guys, now let us move on to the next question, which says that consider a consumer with the utility function is this, and where X and Y are quantity of two commodities. Okay, so which one of the following is true? We are talking about the income elasticity, right? So for both goods is 1, for X is 0, Y is 0, X is this and Y is okay. So if you just find the income elasticity for one good, I think you will be able to answer the question, right? So let us look at the income elasticity for good X. Okay, so let us try to answer that. First of all, what is income elasticity? Let us write that down. Income elasticity is nothing but the percentage change in quantity demanded upon percentage change in income. So basically, what will be the response in the demand of the good by the consumer if there is a change in his or her income, right? So you can further solve this and write this as the change in quantity demanded upon quantity into, you can remove the into 100 divided by change in income upon income into 100. So this can be written as sigma q upon sigma m into m by q, right? So this is the first equation, right? Now let us look at the utility function, and that is what we are going to be writing down next. So it is y plus root x. Your utility function is y plus root x. Okay, so uh, how do you solve this? What do you have to do? What is the first step that you take? You know that the budget constraint is equal to P1 x plus P2 y is equal to m, right? So if we just directly take uh, the MRS here, then you can see that it is going to be equal to, it is mu x upon mu y. So this is going to be 1 upon 2 root x divided by 1. So 1 upon 2 root x. This is going to be equal to P1 upon P2, right? We know what the equilibrium condition is already. So this is what we have. So based on that, you can write that x star is going to be equal to P2 upon P1, and 2 is going to be there. So the whole square of this. So as you can see that x square, the equilibrium x, does not contain m in it, right? For example, when you talk about the Cobb-Douglas function, when y is equal to when u is equal to xy, right? So what is x star there? It is equal to m upon 2p1, right? So there is m in the actual value of x star, but in this case we see that there is no m. Okay, and in the first equation we have already seen that we are looking for, okay, I have used two different symbols here. So we are looking for the partial derivative of q with respect to m. So you can also write that as, you can also write this as this upon m into, right? So x is just q here because we are talking about the quantity of x, right? So in this case, this is, you can write this as the second equation, and we know that this value now, this value is going to be 0, because you cannot tell the change in x with respect to change in m if there is no m in x, right? Not very difficult, right? So because of this, when the first value of this part is going to be 0, so the whole thing is going to be 0. So the income elasticity of good x is going to be 0. Okay, so where is this? Okay, so the second option is going to be correct. So this was the mathematical logic behind it. But if you just go pure intuition wise, what do you think? Why should this be 0? Why should the income elasticity of demand for good x be 0 and not for good y? Because you can see directly from the utility equation itself that y is going to be a normal good, right? But what about x? It looks like x is an inferior good, or it is a necessity good, right? So when the elasticity, when the income of the consumer is going to increase, he is not going to be consuming more of x. Okay, so that is one thing to keep in mind. And similarly, if there was x square, if there was x square in the equation instead of root x, then that would have been a luxury good. Okay, and you are going to tell me what the elasticity of a luxury good is in the comment section. Okay, so question number 22. In a two goods consumption framework, angel curve shows the relationship between. Very easy question. I don't know why or how people got this one wrong. You know that m is on the y-axis and quantity of the good is on the x-axis. So you know that if we are talking about a normal good, then what is going to happen as the income increases? First of all, we uh, we take a point right here. Okay, so as the income increases, the consumption of the good is also going to be increasing. So you just join the 2 points. This is going to be your angel curve, and you can just highlight, okay, you can just highlight these points, something like that, right? So basically what are we being asked? We are being, we just have to tell the x and y axis here. So obviously income and quantity of one of the goods is what we are looking for. So option C is correct. Right, moving on to the next one. Okay, so guys, these are very easy questions. I'm not going to consume a lot of time of your guys, because I know that you guys have very limited time on your hands as well. The exam is very close now, so obviously we'll just run through these ones really quickly. So theory of revealed preference is used to derive. What are we trying to find? We, you know that the whole game is about trying to find the preference, right? So we are trying to find preference using prices, incomes, and optimal choice information. Very easy and direct question. You know that what we are trying to find are the preferences when we say that that there are three options, and if the consumer can afford two of them, the consumer can afford A and B, and C he cannot afford at all, and he is going to be purchasing the B option, then we know that the consumer is going to prefer B over A, right? That is what we say, right? So what did we do? Basically we used his income, we used the prices and optimal choice information to find the preference of the consumer, right? So very easy, very direct question. So this is going to be the answer. Okay, so look at this. Consider the statements first and second in a monopolistically competitive market. In the long run equilibrium, the price of the good will be equal to the minimum of the average total cost. Listen, guys. These questions are literally like just the defining characteristics are given as options. Okay, I have put in a lot of effort to compile the notes on each of the topics, and they are so short. Like if you just look at the table that I have made in the market theory, I have put every single market structure, all of the defining characteristics, all of the shutdown points, all of the important parts that will be relevant for your exam into one table for each and every market. I don't know what more I can do. So at least go on the Examplify platform and check what I'm actually talking about. Okay. So in this case, obviously you know that this is absolutely false. The defining characteristic of the monopolistically competitive market in the long run is that even though price is equal to ATC, it is never at the minimum AC or ATC. That is what defines the monopolistically competitive market. That is what sets it apart from the perfectly competitive market. Okay, in the short run, firms may earn a positive profit. Absolutely, they may earn a loss. They may earn zero profit. So this is absolutely correct. First is false, second is true. C is the correct option. Okay, then if the AVC curve is an upward sloping straight line through the origin, the MC curve will be what? What will be the shape of the MC curve? Let us look at this. Obviously, not every question is going to be very straightforward, even if we are just talking about the basic concepts. You will see that there is some tigdambazi, there is some jugaad that you're going to have to do. So, obviously, if you look here and let us just take the AVC, let us just first draw the graph, okay? Just take a graph. We are being told that this is the AVC curve, okay? So when we have the AVC curve, let us say that AVC is being defined as AQ. Okay. So if this is the case, then what will be TVC? TVC is what? How do you get TVC if you have AVC? You just multiply it by Q. So this, and what about MC? If you have TVC, how do you find MC? You take the derivative, so you have 2AQ, right? So MC is going to be the twice of ABC, and that is how you are going to get to know about the slope as well. Yeah, it's going to be about right here. It is twice as steep as the ABC. So that is what was to be done here, and of the you can see the upward sloping straight line through the okay, steeper than the ABC curve, right? So this is the correct option. Okay, so move on to the 26th question. In the case of liquidity trap, and you are given some okay, so there is an expansionary monetary policy, and you have to tell what happens when there is an expansionary monetary policy in the case of a liquidity trap. Okay, so first of all, what do you need? What are the things that you need to answer this? First of all, you need to know what the definition is of a liquidity trap. Then you should have seen the graph at least once to have an idea of what we are talking about. So just with these two things, I think that you can answer it very, very easily. So let us write down the definition. I'm going to write down the keywords and listen to what I'm trying to say very, very carefully. Okay. So in a liquidity trap, the interest rate is going to be near zero, near zero. Okay, and people will not expect it to go any lower because it is already so low. So now when the central bank increases the money supply further, people do not invest that money. Why? Because the interest is already near zero. So they just keep it as cash, which creates infinite liquidity preference. Which means that now, because the interest rate is so low, that even if the money supply does increase, the people are not going to want to invest that money because they are not expecting that level of return. So they, what they do is they just keep the money with themselves, creating an infinite level of uh, liquidity preference. Okay, so that is the pure logical interpretation of this, right? So now let us look at this graphically. So the money demand curve is going to go down and then it becomes horizontal. The money supply is going to look like this. Now there comes a part when the interest rate becomes almost constant and very near to zero. Okay, so before this, things were going normal. Like at this point, you can see that the interest rate here is much higher. Then as we enter the liquidity trap and the interest rate keeps going down further and further and further, we reach a point at r dash where the interest is so low that now increasing the money supply is doing absolutely nothing, right? Okay, so now as the money supply, this is money supply, this is money demand, as the money supply keeps going right, the interest rate stays at the same point. Okay, so even though the real money balances are going to keep changing and the money supply is going to keep increasing, what we see that there is a infinite liquidity preference, that people are going to happily keep that money with themselves if the money supply increases. So because of that, the investment is not going to increase and the economy will not be able to recover. Okay, that is the issue. That is why the monetary policy cannot be used in the case of a liquidity trap, because decreasing the interest rate is is only going to increase the money supply, but that increase in money supply will not help the investment. So what is more effective in this case is, when you look at the LMIS space, then you will see that a fiscal policy in this case is going to be very effective, because similar to this, even the LM curve has become horizontal. So if you move the IS curve, look at how much the income will increase. Okay, so that is the goal when you are stuck in a liquidity trap. Okay, so right now our focus is on an expansionary monetary policy, so we know that that is going to be ineffective. So D is the option. So moving on, the midday meal scheme for Indian school children was first introduced in. Now, as a JAM aspirant, as a person who wants to get into an IIT by studying microeconomics, macroeconomics, you would be surprised by looking at this weird, out of place question, because anything similar to this is not explicitly mentioned in the syllabus. But then again, that is what the trend is, that is what we have seen over the years. Even back in like 2022 or 2021 paper, we had seen that the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment had been asked, right? So some questions are being borrowed from the civil services space, and a person who has prepared for UPSC or any similar related exam will definitely have an edge over you in the Indian economy section. So That is something, because this is actually a very very famous question in the UPSC space. You will, if you just type this in Google, you will see that there are a lot of civil services related websites that are going to be asking you this question, because it has been asked in government exams before. But I think that this has also been asked in a gate exam before. Either ways, the answer for this is Madras Corporation. Back in 1925, it had been introduced for the first time. But as a JAM aspirant, if you do not get this right, I'm going to tell you that you don't have to feel very bad. Okay, because not a lot of students are going to get this right, and most of the students will actually leave this, because even if you have prepared for civil services, you have not revised the entire thing before coming in for the JAM exam, right? So I don't think that that will give you a very big of an edge. Okay. Okay, so now we have the 28th. Tax buoyancy is defined as, like, very important topic, the same as tax buoyancy versus tax elasticity. The difference and the definitions of both are very 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 important. So this is something that you are expected to be well prepared in before walking into the exam. So tax buoyancy is percentage change in tax revenue upon percentage change in GDP. So when we say that the GDP of the country has increased, we are trying to see if the tax revenue is also floating above the GDP at a proportionate pace. Okay, so it can happen that a country has a very high GDP now, the GDP has increased drastically, but the tax revenue is still at the same place. Maybe that is because of the types of tax that are there in place, right? Or due to some reason or the other, that can be the case. So tax buoyancy measures if the tax revenue are equally or proportionately changing and increasing with an increase in the GDP of the country. Okay, now what about tax elasticity? Like any other elasticity, you will see that this is nothing but change in tax revenue with respect to change in tax rates. Okay, so now we are talking about what happens to the tax revenue when the tax rates are changing. How fast is the tax revenue increasing when we say that the tax rate has now increased? Okay, because the case can be that when the tax rate is 20%, okay, then then 60% of the population is working right now. But now let's say that the tax rate has increased to 40%. You cannot say that the tax revenue has also increased by 40%, because what if 20% of the population now thinks that now working is not worth my time, because the tax rates are very high, so I am going to leave the country, right? Or something similar like that. So the working population can fall, right? Or a lot of things can happen, because of which the tax revenue is not always proportionate in change to the tax rates, and that is what is measured by tax elasticity. Okay, so these are two differences that are very very important to keep in mind, and numericals can also be asked on both of them, so be sure to practice that. So tax buoyancy is defined as growth in tax revenue as a ratio of growth in, nope. So this is basically tax elasticity. Okay, so then we have percentage change in tax revenue as a ratio to percentage change in tax base. Yes, that is correct. What was the last option? To percentage change in government expenditure. No, that is not the case. So tax base will be the most appropriate answer in this question. Okay. Okay, so moving on. You are measuring level of consumption of a good commodity on the x-axis. Okay, so let us write down the keywords. On the x-axis is a good, and that of a bad, y is a bad on the y-axis. The indifference curve is going to be, you have to tell the shape of the indifference curve. So let us make the entire graph. You should remember this graph thoroughly, right? This is something that you are taught at the very beginning. So this is very very important. Then you divide the circle into four parts. Okay. Now tell me before we write anything down, tell me which of the parts, right? Which of the four semicircles out of this, like this is the first option, second option, third option, and fourth option. Which of these four parts look like an indifference curve to you? Is this the shape? Is this the shape of an indifference curve? Is this the shape of an indifference curve? Is this the shape, or is this the shape of an indifference curve that we draw usually in the Cobb-Douglas XY space? This is the one, right? So just by looking at the circle, you know that X and Y, this is the center of it. Okay, this is the center of it. So you can say that this on this part X is a good, and on this part Y is a good. Okay, and how can you say that? You can say that because we know that the indifference curve that we usually draw for a Cobb-Douglas function, we know that X and Y both are goods, right? And we know that the shape is what this looks like exactly, right? So because this is these are two goods, at the opposite pace as this would be the two bads, right? So bad and bad. So we are being asked to draw X is good and Y is bad. Okay, so this part. So if we just name this the first quadrant, this is the second one, this is third, and this is fourth. Okay, so we are being asked about the second quadrant. So you can see that if you take this curve individually, you can clearly see that this is the curve that is going to be drawn, right? Very easy, right? Like there is nothing complicated if you know what you're doing. So then you just have to find the appropriate option. Parallel to x-axis, absolutely not. Then parallel to y-axis, nope. Inverted U shape, I mean kind of, but having a positive slope is the most appropriate one, because inverted U shape would again be this, and that is not what we're going for. We are going for this. Okay. Okay, so question number 30, which is the final question of the first half. Section A has been completed. So congratulations to you as well if you have made it this far into the video. This shows how dedicated you are, and uh, I would say that definitely you have done a great job if you have stuck around till here. And I would suggest you to keep going till the very end, but take a break, drink some water, okay, walk a little bit, and obviously, if you continue studying at this pace, no one is going to be able to stop you from getting into the IIT that you want. So, let us look at the final question of section A. It just asks about the marginal utility of a good, what it is. So, change like what it a marginal utility is nothing but the utility that you get from the consumption of an additional unit of a good, right? Very very easy, right? So rate of change in utility from per unit change in consumption of the good, this is the one that makes the most sense. If you look at D, rate of change in utility from per unit monetary change in expenditure, no, no, absolutely not. Then change in utility by consuming some additional units of the good, some additional units, no. Change in utility by consuming the good, nope. So C is the very easy and very direct answer. Okay, so let us move on to section B now. The first question, or the 31st question, is which of the following statements describes the relationship between r square and adjusted r square denoted by r square bar? Okay, so you have four options, and now because we are in section B, more than one option can be right. All right, so you have to be very careful about that. So um obviously, as you can see, you have four values. So let us write down the formula first between the two. There is a formula. Now not a lot of students memorize these formulas, and most of the people I know actually skip the more advanced topics of regression and correlation, mostly regression, because the weightage is, again, as I had already showed you in the weightage videos, that the weightage that is allotted to regression is not as high as is the time that you have to dedicate to these parts. So at most you will see 4 marks, okay, out of these. And even the people who are preparing regression may not always get these questions right. So there will be a very selected few who do get these right, and they have to allot like a very high time to that. So the cost to benefit is not always up to the mark, as is the idea. So most of the people, or I won't say most, I would say most of the people that I have personally come across have not dedicated the most time to regression. So if you think that the time that is available to you is also very limited, then what you can do is you can skip these parts, because sometimes in, especially in the MSQs, you just have to guess, there is no negative marking. So sometimes you can, if the logic hits you at the time, you can get it right, and if not, then it is not a very big loss. Okay, so anyways, the formula that we have is that r square, the or the adjusted r square, is equal to 1 minus 1 minus r square into n minus 1 divided by n minus k minus 1. Now let us write the things that are denoted by these letters. So obviously r square, you know that it is the coefficient of determination. N is nothing but the number of observations, and what else do we have? We have k. K is the number of independent variables, or you can say predictors, right? So uh, now if you put in the values that are given in the options, you can see that if r square is 1, r square is 1, then what will be r square dash or adjusted r square? So you can see that r square dash is going to be 1 minus 1 minus 1, and then blah blah blah, so it will be 0. So that is correct. So this part will be 0. So 1 minus 0, so 1. So it is 1, right? Yes, so this one is right. Then if r square is 0, then r square, okay, r square is 0. Then you can write that. So uh, 1 minus n minus k, sorry, n minus 1 upon n minus k minus 1. Okay, so this is what you have. So now, can this value be negative? Can this value basically be greater than 1? Obviously it can. Whenever k is not equal to 0, this value is going to be greater than 1. So this whole thing is going to be negative, right? So this is absolutely correct. Now if r square is 1, then r square dash is 0. That is absolutely incorrect. We have already seen this. If r square is 0, then r square is 1. So they are saying that if it is 0, then n minus 1 upon, okay, so they are saying that this value is going to be what is this going to be? It is going to be 0. Okay, this is going to be 0. Is that possible? For a single observation? No, that is not, then that is not going to be the case. Then why do we have a sample here? So that is also not going to be possible. So A and B are the correct options. So now let us look at the 32nd question. Which of the following is not the assumption of the classical linear regression model? Again, when we are solving these types of questions, a very common mistake is that people do not read the word not. They just look at the actual question and they start solving, and even if they get the right answer, they forget that they have to choose the incorrect options, right? So keep that in mind. Now The first option is variance of the dependent variable is greater than the variance of the explanatory variable. That is not an assumption, so that is uh, not going to be right. Then the model is linear in both parameters and variables. That is incorrect. The model is only linear in parameters, and this is incorrect. So it is half true. So again, the statement is incorrect. The covariance between yi and ui is equal to 0, where ui is the error term. This is incorrect. Why? Why is it not right? Because the covariance of only the independent variable with the error term is going to be 0. This is a property of the CLRM, which is the classical linear regression model. So obviously you can see that this is the only right option, but we have to find the wrong options. So A, B and C, the answer is going to be these three. So again, we have a question that is asking which of the following is not true. The first one says arithmetic mean is always greater than or equal to geometric mean for a set of positive values. So this is absolutely correct. This is just a straight up property that we have seen again and again here and there. So this is right, and obviously you can test that as well in the actual exam also. If you are very confused and still you have some time left, you can try some questions out and you can derive some logic by yourself as well. So it is not that tough. Then correlation coefficient between two variables varies between 0 and 1. So this is not true because it varies between 0 and 1, so it can also take a negative value. So this is incorrect. Exact middle point of minus infinity and infinity on the real line is 0. No, that is not how maths works. uh, Minus infinity and infinity is not a value that we can tell, or basically a midpoint is only for real values, and on the real number line we need real values, so these will not give a midpoint, and 0 is not the midpoint of these, so this is incorrect. Domain of a random variable that follows chi-square distribution with degrees of freedom 1 is this. So this is actually an interesting one. Obviously you know that chi-square is the sum of squared observations. So here you have 0 and infinity with a closed bracket. Even if you do not know what this means, you know that infinity cannot be included in any sense whatever we may be talking about, right? 0 is included, yes, that is actually very correct. So because 0 will be included here, but infinity as a value is not going to be included in the domain of any random variable. Okay, so we see that there is a closed bracket, and that is what makes this option incorrect as well. So now these are the nuances that you have to keep in mind. These three are the wrong options, so making the right answer B, C, and D. Okay, not a very difficult question, can be solved logically, but you should know the related information. So moving on, which of the following is our shocks to the IS curve? Changes in demand for consumer goods, self-fulfilling waves of optimism and pessimism of agents in the economy, changes in government purchases. So write down the equation of the IS curve. So it is nothing but y is equal to CYD plus I plus IR plus what do you have, G plus NX. Okay. So this is the equation for the IS curve. So changes in demand for consumer goods. Obviously, we are talking about the product market right now. So this is going to be correct. Self-fulfilling waves of optimism, pessimism in agents of the economy. Obviously, this is going to affect the IS curve when the agents of the economy are going to change their demand because of optimism or pessimism. So matlab, very very easy logic to follow. Then exogenous changes in demand for money. This is going to affect the LM curve or the money market, not the goods market, right? So changes in government purchases directly in the equation. So A, B, and D are going to be the correct options. All right, moving on to the next one. Which of the following are correct in case of small open economy with floating exchange rate? Okay, so fiscal expansion. Okay, so let us first draw the graph. There is nothing in these types of question in the Mundell Fleming in the ISLM curve based questions. All you have to do is draw the graph. But one advice is that for every separate option, draw a separate graph. Most of the people, what they do is that they just draw a graph, and in the same graph they try to make all of the options, or at least one or two or three options that are given in the question, and that very often leads to making a mistake. I have seen that personally. Okay, so always make a separate graph for each and every option. Okay, so first we have a fiscal expansion. As you can see that we have a small open economy and floating exchange rate are the two details that are given to us. Okay, so you have the IS and LM. Okay, so because of the small open economy, we are going to assume that there is perfect capital mobility. So right here, this is going to be the BP curve. So we are told that there is fiscal expansion, the IS curve is shifting to the right. Okay, so obviously as you can see that there is something that is going to happen on the y-axis. The rate of interest that was until now same as the world interest rate has now increased all of a sudden. So you can write this as RO dash. So because of this, there are going to be infinitely large capital inflows because of this, because it is a small open economy. The capital mobility is perfect. Okay. So because of the infinitely large inflow of capital, you will see that there is going to be an appreciation. Okay, so the exchange rate is going to fall because of this, and following that there will be appreciation, and because of appreciation you will see that, let us write that in a flow. So because the interest rate is higher, there are going to be infinitely large capital inflows. This will lead to increase in exchange rate or appreciation. This will lead to a decrease in the net exports. Why? Because there will be more imports and lesser exports. So this lesser net exports are going to decrease the overall income, which will shift the IS curve to the left once again, and you are going to see that it is going to come right back to E naught. It had gone to E1 temporarily and then it comes back. So the option is that fiscal expansion raises income. No, absolutely incorrect. It keeps the income at the same level. This is correct. Guys, I want to point one thing out. These graphs, the Mundell-Fleming model and the ISLM curves, all of these graphs should be on your fingertips. There is no compromise in this topic, okay? Because there will be at least one question every single year, and if you know that there is going to be a question from a topic every year, right? Because this is not just a very wide topic. Like we were talking about regression, there can be a lot of things that can come from regression. This is a very small subtopic where there are just a few graphs, that too very easy to understand. Okay, so all you have to do is memorize those graphs, understand those graphs most importantly, and know when to apply which one. And I think that this is one of the most easiest parts of the entire syllabus, right? So don't stress about it, just work on it and master it. All right, so then capital inflows lead to fall in net exports, capital inflows lead to increase in net exports. Only one of them can be right again because these are contradictory statements. So as we had already seen that when there are infinitely large capital inflows, what happens is that there is appreciation of the domestic currency, that will lead to a fall in net exports and a fall in income. So we don't need a graph for this one, it is just going to be C. So this is going to be your answer. Okay, moving on. Which of the following is or are correct according to the classical macroeconomic model? Like the most basic question that they could have put here, they have put it here. So first option is long run aggregate supply is vertical. I don't know what is to be explained here, that the long run aggregate supply is right here. Then if the long run aggregate supply is vertical, changes in aggregate demand, if the demand is going to change, that is only be going to affecting the price and not the output. Can be seen graphically, can be understood logically. There is nothing to explain here. Then, if the long run supply curve is vertical, changes in aggregate demand affects output but not prices. So that would be the case if the long run aggregate supply was horizontal, not vertical. Then the final statement says that vertical aggregate supply curve implies that output is independent of money supply. Output is independent of money supply. Money supply affects the AD curve, and AD curve cannot change the output. Okay, so that means that by implication, if if AD cannot, then money supply also cannot affect the output. Then this means that vertical supply curve, only change in supply curve is going to be changing the output levels, right? So because of this, you can say that this statement is obviously also correct. So the answer is A, B, and D, right? So moving on. In the case of first degree price discrimination, which of the following statements are correct in the long run? Total surplus is equal to firm's profit. Absolutely correct. Let us just first draw the graph, then we can look at the options. Right? So the entire area goes to the producer. Why? Because in the first degree price discrimination, the producer knows the willingness to pay of each and every consumer. That is the assumption that we make under the first degree price discrimination. Okay, so in this situation, the producer will know what is the maximum price that each customer is willing to pay for every single consumer, and that is what he is going to make them pay. Okay, so let's say that there is a bottle of water and I am willing to pay 100 for it. I am very thirsty. You are willing to pay only 50 for it, and someone else is willing to pay 20 for it. He will charge me 100, he will charge you 50, and he will charge the third person 20. Okay, so he knows the willingness to pay for every single consumer, and that is what he will make us pay. So the entire surplus is going to the producer as producer surplus, which is nothing but the total surplus, which will be the firm's profit. So this is correct. Consumer surplus is zero. That is also correct. He is going to extract the entire consumer surplus as his profit. Correct. Dead weight losses is positive. That is absolute nonsense because the entire graph has gone to the producer. There is no dead weight loss similar to the perfect competition here, but the only difference is that here the entire thing is going to the producer. Okay, but there is no dead weight loss as you can obviously see by the graph, and the producer surplus is zero. Again, absolute nonsense. So these two are the correct options. Very easy question. Okay, again, very direct and very simple question is here in front of you, which is the 38th question. Which of the following statements are correct for diseconomies of scale? Elasticity of cost with respect to output. This is what we are talking about. So let us first write down the formula. Elasticity of cost with respect to output, which is nothing but the percentage change in cost divided by percentage change in output, right? So now tell me, what do you mean by diseconomies of scale? What is the graph of diseconomies of scale, and how do you tell when you are in the stage of diseconomies of scale? Draw the graph of the AC curve, the long run AC curve, when, and show diseconomies of scale right now, and then we can continue. What have you studied? Have you studied this or not? If yes, then very good. If not, then I don't know what to tell you. This is a very important part. So we cut down the middle. This is the minimum of AC. The minimum of ATC is right at this point. Okay, and the MC goes through here, through the minimum of AC. Okay, so MC and AC, and this part is called diseconomies of scale, right? And why is it called that? Because the opposite part right here, this is the economies of scale, where the cost is falling and here it is increasing. Okay, with every increase in output, the cost here is rising and here it was falling. So now let us look at the statements. First one says the elasticity of cost with respect to output is less than 1. Okay, so we know that cost in this part, cost is rising faster than the output. The change in cost is higher than the change in output. So in this case, this the numerator is directly greater than the denominator because the percentage change in cost has to be greater than the percentage change in quantity when you are talking about diseconomies of scale, which is clearly evident by the graph. So this is greater than 1. So is less than 1? Nope. Is greater than 1? Yes, this one is correct. B is right. And then finally, last result of cost is equal to 1. No, this is also absolutely incorrect. Marginal cost is greater than average cost. Yes, that is very very clear and very very correct. So B and D are the right answer. Right, so that is what I'm talking about. You cannot get these questions wrong because everyone else in that classroom sitting next to you is getting these right. So if you have not prepared enough to answer these on your own, you have to hurry up, my friend. Okay, so moving on to the next one. Market failure occurs in the presence of which of the following? Externality. What kind of a question is this, right? Like at first glance, you would think that IIT Delhi is just handing out free marks, right? So externality, right? Public good, obviously. This is what we study under the market failure part, right? What else is there? You would expect, thinking when you're going into the JAM exam, you would expect like very hard numericals based on market failure, and you study the lemon market and this and that, and the river going downside and then the river going upside somehow. So you study all of that and then this is what they ask. So obviously it is a blessing for those who have worked hard, right? So market power, obviously when the firms are going to influence the market, that will also cause deadweight loss and market failure. Private good is incorrect because private good is excludable and rival and it can be allocated efficiently under the perfect market competition. So when we talk about the perfect market, you can obviously private good doesn't have anything that will contradict the functionality of the perfect market itself. So that is obviously not correct here. Then moving on, which of the following reference periods is are used by the National Sample Survey for measuring employment and unemployment? So this is just something that you will have to memorize, right? There is no way around it because obviously there are some things in the budget, in the CPI, WPI, the measurements, the methods of measurement, the chronological orders. So obviously in Indian economy there is relatively more things that you will have to memorize. There are more things that you just have to remember. So making mnemonics is a very very efficient way to do that, but not in this case. Obviously you just remember that 1 month is not going to be there, so the rest of it is there. So they are not asking for the wrong ones, are they? Okay, never mind. So that is your answer. Okay, let us finally come to the part, the section C, where we are going to answer numerical type questions. Okay. Okay, so let us try to solve this. The correlation coefficient between x and y using the following information. We just have to find the correlation coefficient and we are given with all the information that we are going to need. Just directly apply the formula. So that is also one thing to keep in mind, that in the numerical sections you will see two types of numericals. The first one is that you just have to memorize the formula. All you have to know to actually solve the question is going to be the formula. and just directly apply it, you will be given with all the rest of the information. And there will be some numericals where you will have to logically deduce the steps and you will have to find your way to solve it. We will see those types of numericals as well. Now let us just directly apply the formula. You should know the formula for the correlation coefficient, which is nothing but you write n into xy minus summation x summation y divided by under root n to summation x square minus summation x whole square. Similarly do the same for y. Okay, so as you can see, all you have to do is substitute the values that you are given with into the equation and you can solve the answer. N is obviously 100 as you can see, then xy is 438 minus this is 280 and this is 60. So you can solve this, and finally okay, so this is going to be the final answer that you're getting. Okay, so like what is the purpose of this question? What are they trying to test? They are trying to test two things. The first thing is that do you actually know the formula? Do you know the formula of the correlation coefficient? Do you actually know how to find it? Okay, have you revised your formula? That is the first thing. The second thing is that can you actually do this entire calculation? Because a lot of students in hurry in whatever they do, they make a mistake in the actual calculation part, and even if they do know the formula, they are still going to get the final answer wrong. Okay, because in these types of questions you do not have options. You have to put the number yourself. You have to type it and you have to use your mouse to actually fill in the value, right? So because you do not have an option, a lot of students actually make a mistake in the calculation part also. So you have to practice the calculation parts as well. So in your practice sessions while you are solving the assignments, do not skip the calculation parts. They are equally important. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so this is a question on a pack of cards, and I did not expect this in the JAM exam, because a question like this has never been asked before in JAM. It has been asked in CUT PG, however. Okay, so that is something that I have been saying repeatedly, that when you are going for the JAM exam, there can be questions that have come up before in the GATE exam or in the CUT PG exam as well. Okay, so now let us take a look at this. There are two cards that are drawn from a full pack and the probability of getting a heart and a diamond. Okay, so it is nothing. All you need to know is that how many hearts and diamonds are there in a pack of cards, and if you do not know that, unfortunately you won't be able to solve this question. But then again, we are taught this in class 12th in the board exams. In the probability parts there is some mention of the card games and all of that. So the probability is going to be nothing but the favorable outcome upon total outcomes, right? So total, obviously you can tell that out of 52 we are trying to choose two cards, right? Then what about the favorable outcome, right? So there are 13 hearts and there is going to be 13 into 13. This is going to be because there are 13 hearts and 13 diamonds. So together there are going to be 13 into 13 ways to choose one heart and one diamond, right? So that is what we are trying to go for. So 13 into 13 is nothing but 169, and the denominator is going to look something like 1326. The final answer would be 127. But because you are going for only two decimal places, so you can either answer 0.12 or 0.13. Both the answers are going to be right. Okay. So basically, when I was actually trying to solve this one in the actual paper, I did not also at the time know how many hearts and how many diamonds are there. But then suddenly one fact struck me that there are four types of cards. Okay, that much I know. Obviously, there is red and black, and inside of the whole thing, there are four types of cards. So I just thought that if I just divide 52 by 4, I would get 13, and they are asking me about two types, so that would give me this. So fortunately I was able to solve this. So obviously just some related information that if you do have in your mind, you definitely have to attempt these types of questions, because there is no negative marking. Okay, I have said this time and time again, so you must attempt these even if you do not have the slightest idea. Okay, and if you have any kind of related information, you should definitely go for it, right? Obviously if the time allows in the actual paper, not you don't have to skip the parts that you actually know to go for these. Obviously you attempt these at the very end, right? So let us read this question. A monopolist produces two commodities, 1 and 2, in quantities x1 and x2. So firstly we know that it is a monopolist. Then at a constant average cost of 2.5 and 3 per item, P1 and P2 are prices. Then x1 is given in terms of P1 and P2, and x2 is also given in terms of P1 and P2. Okay, so the price P1 for commodity 1 at which the monopolist's total profit is maximized. Okay, so obviously we have to, first of all, the first step for us is going to be to write down the profit function, right? And firstly we can just write it in terms of x and y, or rather x1 and x2. So it's going to be p1 x1 plus p2 x2, which is the total revenue, minus c1 x1 and c2 x2. So c1 c2 is given as 2.5 and 3. So now you can just open and write the whole equation in terms of p1 and p2. And why will we do that? Because we are going to take the partial derivative later on in terms of p1 and p2 to actually find p1 and p2, right? So you can just write p1, and this is, or you can take the 5 out. So it will be 5 p1 p2 minus p1, which was x1. Then you have p2, and x2 is this 32 plus 5 p1 minus 10 p2 minus 12.5 p2 minus p1, and 3 into 32 plus 5 p1 minus 10 p2. So now you are going to see what the actual demand of the question is. They know that this whole thing is very easy. They know that there is nothing complex in the actual logic that is behind solving this question. But the main problem is that it is a lengthy question. First of all, it will take a lot of your time, and secondly, there are some calculations involved where you can make a mistake. Okay, so that is what I was talking about, that there will be some questions that will be very direct. You will know the formula, and the test for you in that question is going to be, can you actually solve this in time, and can you actually solve the question without making a calculation error. Okay, so that is what your test is going to be. So I'm going to leave the calculation part up to you. So the final thing that you are going to be getting is minus 5 p1 square plus 10 p1 p2 minus 10 p2 square plus 49.5 p2 minus 2.5 p1 minus 96. Now comes the part where we just have to take the partial derivative. So minus 10p1 plus 10p2 minus this is going to be 0, 0, then minus 2.5 and again 0 is equal to 0. Okay, so this is going to be our first equation. Then we just have to take the partial derivative with respect to p2 as well. So, okay, so what was our equation? So for p2 it is going to be 10p1, okay, 10p1 minus 20p2. Then let's look for more p2 terms plus 49.5 is equal to 0. This is going to be our second equation. Okay, so a mistake that a lot of students actually made was that they did not take the partial derivative of the profit function with respect to p2 as well. They actually tried to solve x1 and x2 with the first equation only. Okay, so because if you just take the partial derivative with respect to p2, you just have two variables and you have two equations, so you can directly solve for p1 and p2. Let me just write the first equation here again, so we can just what we can do is we can directly solve this. So plus 10p2 and it was it minus or okay minus 2.5 is equal to 0. This was our first equation. So what are we going to do? We can just add it, then we can get minus 10p2 is equal to you go or okay we wanted p1, right? So let us just not do that. I'll multiply this equation by 2 and now we can add it. So it is going to be minus 20p1 plus 10p2 minus 5 is equal to 0. So if we add it, this is going to be 20, right? So this is going to be cancelled and this is going to be minus 10p1 plus 44.5 is equal to 0. So p1 is 4.5, right? So that is a very short and very easy way to do it. You don't have to go into the x1 and x2 part. All you have to do, as I said in the very beginning of the question as well, that you just have to find the profit function. That is going to be very easy. It'll just take maximum 1 or 2 minutes, and after that you just have to put the profit equation with the partial derivative of p1 p2. You will get these two equations and just solve it. So very easy question. uh, the only thing where you can go wrong is the calculation part, so do that slowly and be focused, and once you are done be sure to recheck your calculations because there can always be a small error that has gone unnoticed in the first try. Okay, so let's move on. Then again a very easy question. They are just asking for the ICOR, and if you have done the growth models you will know how to find it. The GDP growth rate is given at 8% and the rate of saving or the rate of investment is 40%. S is 40, and all you have to do is just put in the values. So you can just write S, which is the investment rate as well. So S upon GDP growth rate. So change in Y. So you can just write the growth rate. What is this? 40 upon 8. 5. So there is nothing else to see here. Just but do the growth models very thoroughly because this is not the level of questions that the JAM exam has usually asked. Okay, this was just a one time thing. This is not going to happen again. The questions in the growth models will be around the solo model, the knife edge, the Harry Domer. Okay, so the level of the questions and the difficulty is going to be way greater than what it was during the IIT Delhi exam or the JAM 2025. Okay, so moving on to the next one. A fair coin is tossed three times in succession. The probability of the event that both first and second tosses result in head is. So there are about 100 ways in which you can solve this question. We are going to go with the safest method, which is that पूरा का पूरा sample space भी लिख लो. So that will only save you time in this case because you don't have to use your brain much. So just write it down that it's going to be HHH, HHT, HTH, T H H T H T. Okay, so basically the total number of outcomes is going to be 8 anyway. Okay, so H we have done this and this, so T T H H T T and finally T T T, right? So the total number of outcomes is 8, and the favorable outcomes is what are they asking to find? Probably the both first and second toss is head. Okay, so they have obviously not mentioned anything about the third toss, so it can be heads or it can be tails. But for the first two, we have going to have two favorable outcomes. So favorable upon total is going to be 2 upon 8, which is going to be 1 by 4, 0.25. That is going to be your answer. Very, very easy question. Then again, very easy. You just have to find the unemployment. Okay, so compensation. Yeah, so you just have to find the unemployment rate, and you have the employed, unemployed, and not in labor force. This is useless information. So what they do to confuse you is, obviously, you know, these are old school tricks. You have seen this back in the board exams as well. You have seen this in your graduation. What they just do is that they put some irrelevant information so that you get confused and you try to uh, incorporate that into your answer, even though that is not to be used. So you know that the unemployment rate is nothing but the unemployed population divided by the labor force. Okay, so that is just what it is. Then what is the labor force? It is the unemployed, which is the people that are seeking employment plus the people that are employed. So the unemployed is 10 and labor force is 140 plus 10 into 100 will give you the percentage. So 110 upon 150, so 100 upon 15, that will give you 6.67%. Okay, very simple question. There should be no confusion in this. Moving on. So let us now solve the 47th question, which says that a monopolist produces a product and sells to two types of buyers, A and B. Inverse demand functions for A and B are given by P is 50 minus 5Q and P is 100 minus 10Q. The cost function is given by this profit maximizing output of the monopolist for buyer B only. Okay. So again, very short and easy question, that all we have to do is that obviously you are given with the cost function. Okay, so what is the equilibrium condition for a monopolist? MR is equal to MC, right? And we have to find the profit maximizing for buyer B only. So what should we do? We have two separate demand functions. दोनों का MR we can easily find, and we can find MC. What is MC? It is just 20. Okay, and so even if we had to find the profit maximizing output for both of the buyers, you just find MR1, you equate it to MC. You find MR2, you equate it to MC. And you can easily find the Q1 and Q2 for both of the buyers. But right now, all we have to do is find it for buyer B. So write down P2 is equal to 100 minus 10 Q2. Or we don't even have to write these extra things. So you just have to find the total revenue, which is P into Q. So P is given, so 100 Q minus 10 Q square is your total revenue, and your MR is 100 minus 20 Q, and MC is 20. So 100 minus 20 Q is equal to 20. Q udhar gaya, and this is going to be 80. Q is 4. Moving on. Very easy. Okay, so now the sum of the payoffs to the players in Nash equilibrium. Okay, so again, you know how to find the Nash equilibrium. There is nothing too difficult about it. So just write down the values first. So what do we have? We have X and Y. So this is player X, this is player Y. This is C and NC, C and NC. Okay. So first we write for player X, then for player Y, right? X, Y, then X, Y, then XY. Okay, so that is how you write it. So like I don't think that IIT Delhi could have put an easier question in this. So obviously, uh, you know how to solve this. When y is going for C, the better option for x would be 50. When y is going for NC, right? So you know how to do it, right? So when y is going for this option, when y says that I want C, so what will x choose? X will see that he has two options. He will go for the higher payoff. Again, when y goes for NC, x will see he can go 40 or 20. He will go 40 because y has already chosen this one, NC. Okay, so that is the presumption. So now this is the one. Then we say that x is going C. Now x is going for C. Then what will y do? Y is going for this one. This is higher. Then x is going NC. Then y will go for this one, right? So what is the Nash equilibrium? Very clearly this is the one. But there is one more step to do, that we have to find the sum of the payoffs, then the which is 50 plus 50, it is 100. Okay, so that is a step that you should not and cannot miss. Moving on. So suppose an economy produces 100 kg of rice in a year and sells that for 100 rupees per kg. Okay, so produces 100 kg, this is output, and price is 100. If the quantity of money m is 500, then find velocity of money. Very easy, just put in the direct equation of the quantity theory. Then we have mv is equal to py, and all of the values are given except for v. So 500 v is equal to prices is 100 and quantity output is 100. So v is equal to 100 into 100 upon 500, and it is 20. Very easy. Okay, so now the 50th question. Suppose the utility function of a consumer is u is equal to xy, where x and y are quantities of the two commodities consumed. If price of x is rupees 1 and that of y is rupees 2 and income of the consumer is rupees 100, utility maximizing quantity consumption of x. So very direct question again. I am going to attach the consumer theory notes right now, and because those are absolutely free right now, just visit the Examplify website once and go through the All India Jam Access bundle for 2026. You are going to see that the consumer theory notes right now are absolutely free. They are perfect short notes that you can use for your revision, and obviously the tests are free. So once again I am reminding you to go there and register for absolutely free and buy the bundle and resources for absolutely free right now. So, because the reason I'm saying this is that we have covered all of this in the notes itself. So, if you do the consumer theory part from those notes, you will not need anything else. So, that is the reason that I'm reminding you that. So, suppose the utility function is this. Okay. So, obviously, very easy. Cobb-Douglas function is given, and so the price P1 is given as 1, P2 is given as 2, and income of the consumer is also given. So all you have to do is plug in the values in the actual equation, right? So you know that the budget equation is going to be, it is P1x plus P2y. So plus 2y is equal to 100. That is your budget equation. Now just put in the values into the Lagrange equation. So you know that xy minus lambda x plus 2y minus 100, right? So now take the partial derivatives with respect to x first, then you will have 1 is equal to 0. Then with respect to y, so you can get x minus lambda 2 is equal to 0. Then obviously with respect to lambda itself, so x plus 2y is equal to 100, which is nothing but the budget equation. Okay, so now we take the first equation and the second equation, and what we do is that we divide 1 by 2. Then what will you see here? You will see y upon x. Y upon x is equal to lambda upon 2 lambda. So 1 upon 2. which means that 2y is equal to x. Okay, then you can plug this into the third equation, which was our budget constraint. So x is 2y, so 4y is equal to 100 and y is equal to 25, y star. And what did we have to find? We have to find the utility, okay, for x. So x is nothing but 2y. So x is equal to 2 into 25 is equal to 50. That is your answer. Very, very easy. So the next one says that the value of the derivative of the function y is equal to this at x is equal to 1 is okay. So we just have to find the value of the derivative. Nothing too difficult about it. So you can write y is equal to x e x. Okay, so how do you solve these? You just take the log, right? So you can write log y is equal to, okay, I think that there is a mistake in the question itself. This should be x to the power e of x. This is how it should look like if I'm not wrong. So let us solve it for that. Okay, so ex is going to come down, e to the power x will come down, and you will have log x here. Okay, so now if you take the derivative on both sides, just write differentiating on both sides. Okay, so what will you get? You are going to get 1 upon y into dy by dx. Okay, with, I forgot to write with respect to x. So now you can see that now you can apply the multiplication rule here. So first we take the derivative of ex, which will be nothing but ex, then log x, plus then we have 1 upon x into ex. Okay, so now you can write dy by dx is equal to, we take ex out, you can write log x plus 1 by x, and we have y here. And what was y? Let us take it to a new page. And what was y? We had y as x to the power ex. So dy by dx is equal to x to the power ex, and x to the power and ex in here, log x plus 1 upon x, right? Now we are given that x is equal to 1. So you can just write that x is equal to 1. So 1 to the power e to the power 1, and you have 0 plus 1. So anything, so 1 to the power anything is 1, and e to the power 1 is e. So the answer is E. And you cannot write E into the actual answer. So you should also know the value of E if you are trying to solve this. If you do not know the value of E, you will not be able to solve it. So the value of E is nothing but up to 2 decimal places, right? So, okay, so just write 2.72 and that will be your answer. Okay, moving on. Okay, so moving on. The present value of a perpetual cash flow of 250 per year discounted at a rate of 10% each year is direct formula. The formula for this is the present value is founded as C upon R, where C is the cash flow and R is the discounting rate. So you will just write 250 upon 0.1 and you will get 2500 as your answer. Okay, so there are some things that are just direct formulas, as I have already said many times. So these formulas, like, they have been asked many times in the CUT-PG exams. So based on that, if you are going to a trusted coaching or you are coming to me, obviously you are going to get these formulae. But the thing is that when you are going directly to a coaching and watching loads of videos, you won't really get these formulas at one place. Even if you miss one video, you are going to miss this formula, right? So that is why obviously what I found personally was that short notes was a more efficient and effective method to not miss any formula or any important detail at all. So that is why that's what I came up with. So I would definitely suggest you to check that out. Okay, so now let us read the 53rd question, which says that an economy saves 25% of its national income and invests a sum of rupees 1000 each year. The economy starts with rupees 10,000 as the initial national income. Assume that consumption in any year depends on the income of the previous year. The national income of the economy after 10 years is okay. So there are going to be two methods that you can use to solve this particular question. Okay, so the first method is obviously going to be the manual method, where you go ahead and you solve for each of the years until you get to the final year, where because every year the okay, let me first write the equation, only then you will understand what I'm talking about. So we are told that the whatever the income in the current year is, VT is the current time period, then for that you say that uh, the consumption is 0.75 of whatever the income was in the previous year, because you see that consumption in any year depends on income of the previous year, so of the previous period, and plus we are investing a sum of 1000 each year. So 1000, okay, this will give you the income of the next year. So the first method is going to be that you take for the first year, you find the value. Obviously, the first year we know that it is 10,000. So you use this to find the income of the second year. How will you do that? You put 10,000 here and you solve. Okay, so that will be 7,500 plus 1,000. It will give you 8,500. And then again you put this here and then you solve again and you go on doing that, right? Instead of doing that, there is a general equation that we can form, and using that equation we can solve the entire question, because our goal is not to solve each of the year, our goal is only to find the national income after 10 years. Okay, we just want the national income for 1 year, so we don't have to find the national income for every single year individually, right? So let us try to form that general equation, and if we can do that successfully, then we will save a lot of time in the actual exam, and we can use that to solve other questions. Okay, so the first step to be able to do that is that we have to find the steady state equation. And how are we going to do that? We are going to actually go ahead and instead of saying that these are the incomes of two different time periods, we are going to say that these incomes are of one general time period. And the reason behind, the logic behind that is that this income is going to keep falling every year, right? Because we are multiplying it by 0.75, right? But eventually there will come a time period when this income is going to stabilize. Okay, because whatever is reduced here is going to be compensated by this. Okay, so by that logic, whatever year that is, we don't care what year it is, it can be the 15th year, the 20th year. Okay, there will definitely come a year where whatever loss of income that we are facing because of the savings, right, the 0.25 that is going to disappear every single year, that is compensated by 1000 entirely. Okay, so there are two ways to solve that also. One is what I just described. So that would be that we are saying that because 0.25 of y is going to be completely compensated by this addition of 1000 rupees, or this investment of 1000. So this, so basically the yt will be 1000 upon 0.25, or 1000 into 4, or 4000. Okay, so that is a very interesting way to solve that as well. But another way to solve that is that we just say that yt and yt minus 1 are the same thing. There will come a time where you can uh, plug in this equation again and again, but you will land on the same value again and again. So what I'm saying is that instead of writing yt and yt minus 1, we will write yt on both sides. uh, I will write yt plus 1000. Now look what happens, this goes on the other side, again we land to the same thing that we that I was just telling you, and the yt is 4000. Okay, let me write this more clearly, 4000. Now look at what happens, now look at what happens when I let me take this to a new page. So the equation that we had was was yt is equal to 0.75 yt minus 1 plus 1000. Okay, now let us plug in the value of 4000 on both sides here. So or just on the right side. So now what happens is yt is equal to 3 by 4, or which is 0.75 into 4000 plus 1000. So this becomes 3000 plus 1000. So that becomes 4000 once again. So even though we put 4000 on the right side, we got 4000 on the left side as well. So if we carry on this value again to the next year, what will happen? Now we are going to the next year even further. Okay, so now 0.75, and again we are going to put 4000 plus we are writing 1000. So again we will land with 4000. So we see a pattern that this value is not going to change. We have struck a steady state. Okay, the steady state for this is when the y, or the income, is 4000. That is the minimum that it can reach. No matter how much you save now, because of the investment, now you cannot go below 4000 income in your economy. Okay, so now what happens is that once we do have the steady state income, which is 4000, what we are going to do is find the income gap. The income gap here is initial income, which is 10,000, minus the steady state income, which is 4000, which gives us 6000. What is this? This is additional income. This is additional income above the steady state income. Okay, so what we are trying to look at here is that we are trying to see how many years it is going to take, or how much time it will take for this additional income to completely disappear. Because we know that this is going to disappear, we will reach a point when the income will be 4000, no matter how much time that takes us. Okay, so this additional income, or the income gap that we have just found, we are going to use this to see how much time it will take for this to disappear or to decrease. Okay, so now we have another component for our general state equilibrium, and we are going to write this down as that the income, or the yt, or the income of the current period, is equal to 6000, or income gap, multiplied by the consumption rate. And we are going to write this in a general way, that this to the power. So we are writing this because in the first year what you saw was that we were writing 10,000. In the second year, 10,000 into 0.75 plus 1000. In the third year, 10,000 into 0.75, whatever this value was, which was 7,500, right? Even this into 0.75, but not just this, even plus 1000. Okay, so we had to add plus 1000 here. Only for that reason we could not write a general state equilibrium in that state. But now, because we just have the income gap, straight up we are not adding anything. This is just the income gap, which will stay the same every year. Okay, this is going to be constant, because we know that the minimum state is 4000, right? So that is what we had to find. We had to find a value that would stay constant. Now to this value, instead of adding 1000, we are going to add we are going to add 4000. Okay, because the income gap will tell you what you have to add to the minimum income, and that is going to be whatever the total income is of that period. So let us take the example of the first period. Okay, when we only add the 0.75 once. So let us say that for y1, you will say 6000 into 0.75 only once, plus 4000. So the power of this is 1. So now you see 3.3 by 4 divided, so 15, so 4500 plus 4000 is equal to 8500. Is this not the value? Is this not the value that we also found with the first method? It is, right? So we have seen that our method is completely verified. Now let us just take the same value for y10. So 6000 multiplied by 0.75 to the power of 10. You will be given a scientific calculator in the exam, so do not worry about that. Just use it, and plus 4000. So this value is going to be given to you as 337.8, and then plus 4000, and this will give your answer as 334,337.8. This is your final answer. Okay, so instead of solving for each year and then carrying that value forward, it will take you about 10-15 minutes, and you could have solved 5 questions in that time. Okay, so that is why I had to show you this method, which is very efficient. And trust me, most of the students will be wasting their time solving for each of the year manually. Okay, so if you know this hack, then obviously you are way ahead of the rest of the students. Okay, so this was definitely a question that was on the harder side, because not a lot of students know this method and they had to waste a lot of their time. So most of the students had to skip this question because of that, right? So let's move on. Okay, so moving on to the 54th question now. Anubhav faces a MCQ with 4 alternative choices if only one is right. There is no negative mark for a wrong choice. Also assume that the probability that he knows the answer is zero point 0.5. Okay. Probability of making the correct choice is 0.25 if he does not know the answer. He got full marks in this question. The probability that he knew the answer is okay. So let us write down the events first. So we have he knows the answer. He answers correctly. Okay, so now let us first write down what we have to find. We have to find the probability that he knows the answer given that he has answered correctly. So obviously it is just a simple Bayes theorem question. You should know how to approach a question that is asking you to apply the Bayes theorem. So obviously just write down the formula, and this is how it is written. So these two values will be given to you. What you have to find is this, which will be which will be found using the total probability rule, right? So let us take this to a new page. So probability that he knows the answer, it is 0.5. Probability that he does not know will obviously be 0.5. Probability that he gets it correct given that he does not know the answer is given as 0.25, right? Probability of making correct choice if he does not know the answer. Okay, so probability that he gets it wrong, given that he does not know, is 0.75, and obviously probability that he gets it correct given that he knows the answer will be 1, right? If he knows the answer, then obviously he's going to get it right. So this is the information that we have to work with. So let us plug in the values that we already have. Pk is how much? It is 0.5. Probability he gets it correct given he knows is obviously just 1, upon, let us now find the total probability of he gets it correct. So how do we find that? Obviously there is a formula for that as well, and you should memorize that, it is probability of knows and multiplied by probability he gets it correct and knows, and then just the opposite of that. Okay, so 0.5 multiplied by 1 plus 0.5 multiplied by 0.25. So 0.5 plus this is going to be 0.125, so 0.625. So just plug that back here, and the answer that you are going to be getting is 5 by 10, and it will be 0.8. Okay, so that is your final answer. Very easy question. I mean, you just have to know the formula for the Bayes theorem. So practice that, practice the Bayes theorem, practice the questions that are in it, and you'll be good to go. We have the 55th question, which says you are tossing a fair coin repeatedly until a head appears. The expected number of tosses required. Okay, so basically, what we are trying to do is that obviously we know the probability of head is equal to probability of tail is equal to 1 by 2, right? So what we are looking for is that after how many tails is the first head going to appear on average, and how will we do that? If you just write down the sequence here, the sequence here, that tail 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 until the first head appears, you will see that this would look like a geometric distribution to you, right? Because what we are trying to do is essentially that we are repeating independent trials until the first success hits. Okay, and the success here for us is the first head. Okay, so we know the probability of both the events, so what we just do is that we just take the the expected value of the random variable x, where x is the first head that is going to appear, and obviously you know the formula for it is just 1 upon p, so just 1 upon 1 by 2, so that will be just 2. Okay, so that is just the answer. There is no deep logic in it. That obviously you can say that I tossed a coin 20 times and I still didn't get ahead. That is not what we are talking about. This is a game of probability. So this is how this question is solved. Okay, it is just a random variable question. Okay, so now we have the 56th question, which is talking about the learner index, which is a measure of market power. It is defined as this, where a P and MC respectively price and marginal cost. If a profit maximizing firm faces the demand curve, the value of L is. Now, this is a very important question because I want to point something out here. Okay, what most of the teachers are going to tell you is, and it is such a headache, it is so unnecessary and so long, and I mean it is so, like, it is so outright stupid that I cannot fathom why people are going for that approach. They are wasting so much time and so much calculation is there, and it is just a waste of time and effort. Look at this. What they are going to tell you is that first you have to find price in terms of q. So you are going to write something like this, and then from this you are going to find total revenue by doing pq. From this you are going to find mr. From this you will say mr is equal to mc, so find mc. Then you are going to take all of this and then plug into this equation to finally find your answer, and that is such a waste of effort. What I mean, the the jam examiners have literally told you that we are playing around with the learners index, and what is the formula for it? What is on the right side of it? Do we not know that p minus mc upon p is nothing but the 1 upon the modulus of the elasticity of demand? And when we have the demand curve, why wouldn't you just go with this approach? Look at how less time I spent on this particular question, and I obviously got it right even during the exam, and I solved it using this approach. Okay, so you don't have to follow what your teacher says every time. Okay, you can play around with the formula if you know them and you trust yourself in during the exam, and that trust will only come with practice. Okay, so obviously just look at how easy it is. You write that the demand curve is p square q is equal to 7. Okay, you just take q is equal to 7 upon p square. Okay, was that any effort? Now you know that the formula for the price elasticity of demand is. Now these small calculations are in your head. I am just doing this here because I want to show you what I did and what the thought process was. Okay, so this is not me wasting time during the exam. Okay, you are going to know this in your head that what the formula for the price elasticity of demand is, right? So you just write that ed is equal to uh, sigma q upon sigma p into p upon q. Okay, so this is the formula that we all know. So what we are going to try and do is that we are going to take the partial derivative with respect to p. So we just write this as sigma q upon sigma p, and then 7 upon p cube, and this becomes minus 2 because the power goes up. Okay, so we have the first equation, and now what else do we need? We need p and q. We literally have p and q right here with us. So the price elasticity of demand is nothing but we write minus 14 upon pq because minus 2 into 7, and then we have p, and then q is 7 upon p square. Okay, so these get cancelled, and 7 and this gets cancelled, so we have minus 2. Done. You have your answer. Your answer is that the learner's index is nothing but 1 upon the modulus of price elasticity of demand, 1 upon mod of minus 2, which is nothing but 0.5, and that is your answer. So many, I mean, I'm not showing you right now, but if you go through the approach that I just told you about before this, that what every teacher is going to tell you, that you have to find this, that, and I mean, it is going to take you about at least 5 minutes. This took you 1 minute. Okay, so that is how you save time. and you get this through practice, and you get this through the cheat sheets that I have made for you. Just for God's sake, visit the website and you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm not just talking nonsense. I have done my research. That is why I am talking right now. Now, again, another question where teachers are going to take a very, very stupid approach, and I'm going to show you how to solve it the easy way. Okay. Okay, so the method that you can, I mean, obviously you can use that as well. I'm not saying that you just have to go with the methods that I am teaching you, but if you want to save time and effort, why would you not go with these? So obviously you have the demand function here, p square q5 is equal to 392.67. Okay, let us just write 392 point whatever this is as k, and I'll tell you why. Because in the general equation, when you have a q, when you have a demand function, and you have your right hand side, or your value of q as this, in the form of this q, k can be any value, it can be any constant value, and p raised to the power of any n. Then in this form of the demand function, n, or the exponent of p of price, is the price elasticity of demand. Okay, it is the price elasticity of demand. So this method will not work if you have the q or the demand equation in the form of something like this, where you have an added a. Then you're going to have to go the conventional method, which is that you have to first find q and q in terms of p. Then you are going to have to take the partial derivative, and then you will have to multiply it with p upon q, and then obviously you can solve it just like we did the last question. So that is also not very complicated. It will just take you a few extra steps and a little more time. But right now, because IIT Delhi gave you this equation purposely, they were trying to test you, do you know this formula or not? Okay, because this will save you time, no? So you can just write q is equal to k. I am not going to even bother with writing the whole value because it is not relevant for us. K upon p square and whole to the power of 1 by 5. So you can write k 1 by 5 and into p of minus 2 by 5. This is the exponent of p, which is also the elasticity of demand. So this is nothing but 2 by 5. So obviously we are going to take the absolute value because that is what the question itself has mentioned. So we are going to write this as 0.4. That is your final answer. Is there any confusion? If there is, there shouldn't be, but if you are still confused, you can comment down below on the video, and if you are still very confused, you can directly reach out to me on my Telegram channel. I am going to be solving doubts for you guys, no matter if you are enrolled in my batches or not. I will still be clearing your doubts. You just have to message me. Okay, so okay, moving on to the 58th question. Price of milk of certain brand was 28 per liter, 36 per liter in the months of September and October of whatever year. Assume equal amounts of money is spent on that brand of milk. Equal amounts of money, okay, spent on that brand of milk by a family in each of these months. The average monthly price of milk paid by this family during these months is. So, what do you have to do? You just have to write down 28 plus 36 and divide by 2, right? And that is going to be your answer. So solve it. Is that how you solve it? Go and try that during the exam. You will get 2 marks deducted, right? There is no negative marking. So don't have to stress too much. That is not the way to do it. I am going to give you a golden rule right now. And the reason I mentioned it is many people actually did that mistake. Many people actually wrote 28 plus 36 upon 2 and gave that as the final answer. Do you want to be among those people? I hope not. So, the golden rule is that when equal quantity is bought each month, if equal quantity was bought, equal quantity, then you use the arithmetic mean. Then you could have done that. what they did here was doable if there was equal quantity in both months. But when there is equal money that is spent in both months, equal money, then you go ahead and use the harmonic mean. Okay, so you can use this logic and apply this to any kind of question that you face during the exam. Okay, but do not make the mistake of using the arithmetic mean in these types of questions, warna 2 mark gayab. So in this case, obviously what you have to do is that the price of milk in September is 28, price of milk in October 36. So equal amounts of money is spent on both of them. So because there are 2 months, so obviously first of all you can just write that whatever, let's say that there was 1 rupee spent on milk. So what will how much milk can you get? You will get this much amount of milk in liters, right? So even if you just go by units, right, 1 rupee divided by 28 rupees per liter, rupee will get cancelled, you will get 1 by 28 liter, right? So that is how the units work as well, right? So simply write 1 by 28 liter, and in the month of October you get 1 by 36 liter for 1 rupee, right? So now let us take this to a new page, and so you know that there are 2 months, so we are going to add them both. So you get 2 by 1 by 28 plus 1 by 36. That is going to be what? That is going to be your average price, right? That is going to be your average price for 2 months. So if we had an arithmetic mean, you could have done something like 28. So this is what it should have looked like, but now it has completely reversed because we are solving it with the harmonic mean. So the you can just solve this further. You will see that this is 36 plus 28 upon 1008, and the final answer is going to look like um, so what is the answer here? It is 31.5. Okay, it is 31.5. So but the method is more important, and this is more important for you, that when to apply what method, right? So let us move on to the next one. Okay, so consider the economic described by the following: y is equal to this, okay, where private consumption, tax, revenue, interest. Okay, so we have to find private saving. We are given with all the details, so just directly plug in the formula. You should know what private saving is and what the government saving is. So private saving is nothing but income minus taxes minus the consumption. By definition, you can obviously easily understand that this is the savings that the private sector can do for each individual household. Even if you think, you will know that they have income, they will pay taxes, they will consume, whatever is left is their savings. And at the macroeconomic scale, you add that for all the households, that is the private sector savings. So these are your private savings, right? So you just have to find this. So obviously you have income as 5,000, minus taxes are given as 1,000, and the consumption is given as, okay, you have to further solve the consumption. So 250 plus 3 by 4 into 4,000 is 3,250. So your answer is going to be 750, right? Very easy, very direct question. I don't know why this is so complicated. This is just the private saving. If you want to talk about the public savings or what the government savings is, just think about savings. What are savings? Revenue minus expenditure. For public, for the government, what is the revenue? It is tax, and minus what is their expenditure? It is the G. So in this case, the government savings or SG is 0, and SP in this case has already been found to be 750, right? Very easy, right? I mean, these questions in the two marker space of the numerical type questions are like a gift for us, right? They're very easy. So moving on to the very last question. So moving on to the very last question. Congratulations to you if you have made it to the very end of the video. Again, I am mentioning once again, I have said this at the 30th question, and now I'm going to say it again, that your dedication shows and reflects through your hard work. Right? If you have made it this far, if you are trying to learn the PYQs, if you are trying to put in the extra effort that other students are not, then you, my friend, are already one step ahead. All you have to do is keep continuing this effort till the very day of the exam. Okay, and once you have found the success, trust me, it is very, very, very sweet. And the pride that you have on yourself and your family has for you once that you have cleared these exams is like, it is like nothing else, right? So clear the exam, make it into the top 100, and you will always remember this effort for the rest of your life. Again, a very easy, or I would say the easiest question in the entire paper. You are given with a matrix. This is the only, there were only two questions for maths in this entire paper, and this was the second one. So obviously maths was not given any respect by IIT Delhi. This is the easiest question in the entire paper. You have A equal to this matrix, and you just have to find this. So there are several methods. You can do this manually, what many teachers are going to teach you, that you can just keep on multiplying whatever you get here, then you multiply again, then whatever you get, then you multiply again, and then you keep going till you find this, right? So that is one way of doing it. But since we are just talking about the determinant, I'm going to teach you another very, very, very important property that many people do not know, is that the determinant of a to the power n, whatever n is, it could be 100, is equal to determinant of a to the power n. Write it down and memorize this. Write it down in your heart, in your brain, in your lungs, in your whatever you want, or wherever you want to write it. But this is one of the most important properties that is going to be very useful for you. So you just have to find this, and it is going to be nothing but uh, um, this. So you can just solve the determinant, and it's going to be minus 12 plus 12, so 0. Okay, wow, amazing. So 0 to the power of 5. 0 to the power of 5. I think we should multiply 0 5 times, because this is very complicated, and the final answer might look something like this, or this doesn't look very good. Oh my god. Let's just make a circle. Okay, this is good. No, this is not. Okay, so 0 is the final answer. So, alright, that was the end of the 2025 paper. So, if you have made it this far into the video, be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends, like the video, whatever. And most importantly, trust me, visit the Examlify website for God's sake. You will not regret it. There are helpful demo resources, there are free resources, free test papers. At least attempt the mock tests. Register on the website. There is a test coming this Sunday, and there will be tests coming throughout till the very end of your preparation journey, till the actual jam exam. There are mock test series that are live right now. There are going to be short notes, and there is a complete revision bundle. There is a complete revision series that you can purchase right now. Go onto the website and at least try for yourself before judging. And that is all from my side right now. And
Be sure to visit the website at least once. I'm telling you for the last time.
okay, that was all from my side. Thank you.